If you're ever in a forest in Canada or the northern United States and hear what sounds like a car stalling, the culprit is likely this bird. This chicken-like bird is crucial to the health of both deciduous and coniferous forests of North America, serving as a crucial prey species and seed distributor. On this episode of Animal Analysis, Bonasa umbellus, the ruffed grouse. It's May in this healthy forest in eastern Canada, and the spring migrants have begun to arrive. In the canopy, a black-throated green warbler sings its high-pitched song, and an eastern wood pewee darts off a branch to grab an insect mid-air. A group of yellow-rumped warblers flits through the branches, refueling on insects before continuing north, and a loud sound rumbles through the woods. It sounds unnatural, like it's out of place in these living woods. But although it sounds like a car stalling, this sound is indeed natural. It's the male ruffed grouse looking to attract a mate and let other males know this is his territory. When displaying, the male ruffed grouse fans out his tail like a turkey and ruffles his dark neck feathers into this mane, which gives the bird its name. Ruffed grouse, due to the dark chocolate-brown ruffs, and Bonasa umbellus, due to the umbrella or parasol-like shape of the ruffs during display. These birds are primarily herbivorous, feeding on plant matter such as buds, twigs, and catkins, those long tassel-like flowers of some trees, in the winter and autumn, and they apparently prefer ones from quake and aspen, while leaves are the primary food source during the summer months, mostly young leaves. Ruffed grouse will also take berries, fruits, acorns, and other nuts, as well as invertebrates when available. Now that's a lot of fiber. So how do they digest all these tough foods? The main key is apparently an exceptionally long cecum. The ceca, or cecum, are two long pouches near the beginning of the large intestine that are primarily involved in the digestion of cellulose, found in leaves and other tough plant foods. And a lack of teeth is not an issue either, as grouse will swallow grit and stones, which sit in the gizzard, and assist in the grinding of food. Gizzard stones! This male is foraging on the forest floor, where grouse are most often seen. But ruffed grouse can fly, and often forage on buds and leaves in the canopy, hidden amongst the leaves. The ruffed grouse is one of the most widespread game birds in North America. They are non-migratory and ranged from Alaska to California to Newfoundland and the South, as seen on this map. Now, there aren't many birds you can confuse with the ruffed grouse, especially males of other game birds, which look much different. But there are a few female grouse of other species that look somewhat similar. To the north, there's the spruce grouse, but she's a lot darker with black and reddish-brown speckling, as you can see here. In the north in the mountains, there are the three species of ptarmigans. But they've got a lot more white and have feathered feet, so aren't too hard to tell apart. Then there's the sharp-tailed grouse, which lives in the prairies. But it's in a completely different habitat and is more gray. Then in the west, there's the sooty and the dusky grouse. But they're much larger and heavier than the ruffed grouse, and they lack the dark bars on the flanks, as well as the band near the tail tip present on the ruffed grouse. The primary cause of mortality for ruffed grouse, as with most game birds, is predation, with their predators including all the usual suspects: coyotes, owls, hawks, hunt adults, and raccoons, mustelids, and corvids prey on young and eggs. Basically, any carnivore that can catch them will eat them. In Canada and Alaska, grouse are sympatric with snowshoe hare populations, and so decreased hare populations result in increased predation pressure on the ruffed grouse by predators such as owls and goshawks, which prey on both species. This is observable in population fluctuations of the two species on a roughly 10-year cycle. When one increases, the other begins to decrease, and so on. Ruffed grouse are also a targeted game species by hunters in Canada and the northern US. Though their population and popularity as a game bird have both declined in the eastern US, there is still a large amount occurring, and these hunters contribute significantly to their conservation. See, the ruffed grouse thrives in young growth forests, particularly with lots of aspen. Remember, they like those quaking aspen. But fire control and development has destroyed much of this habitat, which causes issues. Luckily, it's not too hard to create such a habitat, and avid hunters often buy the land to nurture such habitats, which help the grouse, as well as other species which inhabit these areas, therefore contributing to their conservation. Ruffed grouse are landfowl belonging to the galliforms, which along with the waterfowl of Anseriforms forms the Gallo-Anserae, which is within the Neognathae, which was the second group of birds to split off after the Ratites of the Paleognathae. Within the galliforms, the ruffed grouse belongs to the family Phasianidae, along with the pheasants, turkeys, grouse, and the Old World quail, which is sister to the Odontophoridae. That's the New World quail. Within Phasianidae, Bonasa belongs to the tribe Tetraonini, within which it is sister to the rest of the grouse as the basal offshoot. Bonasa is a monotypic genus, where Bonasa umbellus, the ruffed grouse, is its sole extant species, though it does have 13 to 15 subspecies across its range, depending on who you ask. It's May, and this male ruffed grouse needs to find a mate soon. He fans out his tail, ruffles his neck feathers, and calls out with the drumming call. Nearby, a female hen watches judgmentally to determine whether or not his courtship display meets her expectations for the father of her young, as females incur a much higher cost of reproduction. If she decides to mate with him, he'll transfer his sperm directly to her via a cloacal kiss, which is where the birds press their cloacas together for direct sperm transfer. The cloaca is basically the single hole on the back of the bird. They have slightly different anatomy than mammals, just. The hen then builds her nest alone, which is a depression on the forest floor, possibly against the roots of a tree, or in a thicket, or maybe against a rock. And it's lined with leaves and other soft materials. She'll then lay 9 to 14 milky white eggs, and is the sole incubator. The sandy chicks are precocial, with their eyes open, and are able to leave the nest within 24 hours. The hen will escort them throughout the summer, until the brood disperses come September. The male only rarely contributes to raising the young, and he'll likely mate with multiple females in one season, as the lower reproductive cost for the male means mating as often as possible has a larger fitness increase, then potentially increasing brood survival via parental care. Birds first diverged from the other dinosaurs sometime during the Mesozoic, as the border between birds and non-avian dinosaurs is not agreed upon, with some arguing the boundary to be around Archaeopteryx during the Jurassic, and others arguing the last common ancestor of Paleognathae and Neognathae to be the first bird, which would put the boundary during the Cretaceous. We can't be certain. Galloantherae and the galliforms themselves were present during the late Cretaceous and survived the KT mass extinction that wiped out the non-avian dinosaurs, while the family Phylogeny split from the Odontophoridae roughly 30 to 40 million years ago, during the Oligocene, as supported by both fossil evidence and genetic estimates. Then the grouse of Tetraonini split off sometime during the early Miocene, roughly 20 million years ago. And molecular data suggest an early divergence of the genus Bonasa within Tetraonini, roughly 15 million years ago, although the ruffed grouse itself likely arose later. Fossils attributed to the ruffed grouse have been uncovered in Pleistocene caves, though, so the species would have originated prior to then, so probably roughly 2 million years ago. The ruffed grouse is an incredibly interesting species. I mean, look how beautiful that display is. And that sound sure is unique. Until next time on Animal Analysis, make sure to like, share, subscribe, and comment your favorite grouse species. And maybe check out one of these other interesting videos.